jump back into NBA free agency. There's a lot going on out there. We can't keep track of all of it. We can do our best, but we bring in people that know a lot more about it than we do, and that's why we bring in, once again, Josh Martin, lead writer for the NBA for Bleacher Report. Josh, appreciate the time. Let's dig into it because there's a lot going on today in regards to guys signing and guys meeting with teams. And let's start with Kevin Love. Signs the 5-year deal, $110 million to stay in Cleveland. What can you tell us? Has there been any additional details on that contract released as of yet?
I don't think so. I haven't seen anything else come across other than it's about $109 million, which pretty nice take for Kevin Love, coming off a rough year for him statistically. And as far as the injuries are concerned, all I know is that he'll be there. He'll be in Cleveland for a while, and I'm sure the Cavs are happy to have him. And I think Kevin Love certainly has to be pleased that he gets to be a part of a title contender next to LeBron James for the next half decade.
Well, now that he's signed and there's talk that they're close to an agreement with Tristan Thompson, and we knew that when LeBron opted out of his contract, the comments that were made and the reports were that he was going to kind of sit back and see what the team was going to do in free agency before he opted back in. And I don't think anybody thinks that there's somewhere else he is going to go. But now that Love is locked in and Thompson is pretty close, do you foresee that James is not too far away from opting back in, or are we still a few weeks away?
Yeah, I'd have to think that LeBron is coming back. It's just a matter of when. Maybe he's on vacation now and doesn't want to think about it. That was kind of the case last year where he got away and left everyone on pins and needles wondering what's he going to do. And we saw the whole market halt. But I think the fact that everyone else is signing and everyone else is making their deals, even the big guys right now, is a clear indicator that everyone expects LeBron to be back in Cleveland, just as I'm sure LeBron expects to be back there as well.
Let's move over to down south, down there in Miami with the Dwayne Wade Miami Heat situation, a guy that has been arguably the face of that franchise for the majority of his career down there. He's taken his concessions a number of times to bring in other guys, never been the highest paid player on that team. Is there any chance that he goes somewhere other than Miami when this is all said and done?
I mean, I suppose there's a chance just because he hasn't signed with anyone yet. But I would tend to assume that Dwayne Wade is going to be back in a Miami Heat uniform. I have a hard time believing that there's going to be another team out there that's going to offer Dwayne Wade more for his services than the Miami Heat would be willing to, given that Wade is 33. Is basically you can pencil him in for missing 20 to 25 games a year. I have a hard time believing that Dwayne Wade would actually want to leave Miami. He's won 3 titles there. He is the face of that franchise and has been for a long time. Miami, he's revered there. People love him there. So I think ultimately these two sides will get a deal done. But until that time comes, I suppose you have to say it's not 100% certainty that he signs.
Well, with the signing of Dragic, took the 5-year, $90 million deal, but could have went for more. Could have went for $100 million plus in 5. There was rumor maybe a 4-year, $85 million max. But he wanted to be flexible to leave room for them to re-sign Dwayne Wade. That says all we need to know about what that locker room thinks of D. Wade, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think so. And that's sort of the tone that organization has set for so long. I think the Miami Heat with Pat Riley, setting the tone and having everyone kind of fall in line. Everybody understands what it takes to win, what it takes to build a good team. Look, Pat Riley was able to convince not just Dwayne Wade to take a pay cut, twice, but prior to that, he convinced Chris Bosh and LeBron James to leave money on the table to play together. And obviously that worked out very well for the Heat. They won 2 titles. They went to 4 straight finals. So I would imagine that the pitch is probably a similar one that Riles has made to other free agents, probably made that same pitch to Dragic, saying, hey, we know how to win here. It takes some sacrifice from everyone. We'll get you paid, but if you give a little back, you'll get a lot more in return.
Well, the Dwayne Wade thing, I know it's real easy for people, including myself, to sit and think, you know what, he sacrificed so much. He stepped aside. He knew LeBron was going to come in and be the man after Wade was the face of that franchise for so many years. As you just mentioned, he's left money on the table more times than once. And a lot of people would think, you know what, reward the guy, pay the guy. But business doesn't work that way. How much do you think? Rumor is he wants 3 years, $60 million. They were at 3 years, $36 million, somewhere around. Where do you think this ends up? Does he get around $40 million for 3 years?
I would imagine that he might end up in somewhere arranged like a 4-year deal, potentially. There's word that there are incentives in Dwayne Wade's shoe contract that he can fulfill if he plays 4 more years in the NBA. So I would imagine that might come into play, that maybe Wade will say, all right, we can do 4 years, maybe 4 years, $60 million, or 4 years, $64 million, something along those lines. He still gets paid pretty well and gets to meet those incentives and gets to stick around in Miami for a long time, because you figure down the road, once he starts getting into being 35, 36, 37, that sort of money is going to be pretty darn good for a guy of that age with whatever he can still contribute, even though down the road the salary cap is probably going to look entirely different than it does today.
Talking NBA free agency with NBA lead writer from Bleacher Report, Josh Martin, on the Menard Studio Hotline. It's Ford and O'Brien, ESPN Evansville 105.3. Let's get into the LaMarcus Aldridge sweepstakes, as it were. What's the latest on him? I know that I saw conflicting reports today. One said that the meeting with the Lakers didn't go all that well, and then there were other reports that the Lakers seemed to think it went pretty well. What's the latest on that?
Well, the latest is that he has crossed the Lakers off of his list of potential teams he would sign with. So I think that says all you need to know about how that meeting went. It may not have gone poorly, but it didn't go well enough for LaMarcus Aldridge to feel like he wanted to be a part of the Lakers, and that's certainly understandable. There's some folks saying that, maybe the Lakers didn't take the right approach, that they focused too much on off-court opportunities, there wasn't enough analytics involved, and all these different things. Maybe Kobe turned off LaMarcus Aldridge. I think at the end of the day, it comes down to the fact that, the Lakers have been terrible the last 2 years. They're the 2 worst years in franchise history, and LaMarcus Aldridge, being a guy who's just shy of his 30th birthday, probably is not too keen to join a rebuilding project, even if it is one with the Lakers. So he'll be moving on. He's already met with the San Antonio Spurs. Word is he's meeting with the Phoenix Suns. They've become a player in his mind now that Tyson Chandler is signed in Phoenix. So I think those 2 teams will be among those fighting for LaMarcus' services. And I think the Portland Trailblazers might have a little bit of a Hail Mary up their sleeve, given they know LaMarcus best, and LaMarcus does have a strong relationship with their GM, Noel Shea.
Would he leave money on the table to leave Portland, do you think?
It looks like that's the case. Portland can offer him more money over more years. Of course, there's the caveat that when the cap explodes, there may be more money available, but all indications are thus far that LaMarcus has been offered, 4-year max deals from other teams. So it's a tricky situation, I think, but I think at this point in his career, LaMarcus just wants to win. Obviously, he wants to get paid well. He's going to get paid well wherever he goes, but I think more than anything, he wants to be a part of a title contender.
Josh Martin, our guest on the Menard Studio Hotline, Ford and O'Brien, ESPN Evansville 105.3, talking NBA free agency. And you had mentioned when we were discussing LaMarcus Aldridge there just a second ago, the Lakers are a team, they're out. Every story that has come out about a free agent, the Lakers have shown interest. And you've had guys like LaMarcus Aldridge that had expressed interest in maybe playing for the Lakers. Jimmy Butler, until he signed his max deal with the Bulls earlier today, had talked about wanting to maybe go out and play with the Lakers. You said it yourself, that team has been terrible for the last 2 years. They know Kobe has been difficult to deal with and has turned some free agents away, and yet you still hear players interested in going out to L.A. What makes that a desirable destination for some players?
Well, there's L.A. for one. A lot of guys live in L.A. A lot of these guys train in L.A. So I think a lot of guys enjoy the weather. They enjoy all the things that L.A. has to offer them as a city, as far as entertainment and food and all the different things that come with being in Los Angeles, marketing opportunities to be sure. And also the Lakers are the Lakers. There's an organization that's won 16 championships, that has a history of really doing well, of committing to its stars and taking care of its stars as best as it can. They just happen to be in dire straits on the court right now, or have been for the last couple of years. So there's only so much the Lakers can do to sell players on the past and what's available outside of basketball. And when you get down to the nitty-gritty of what's on the court, the reality is, they're trying to rebuild around a rookie in D'Angelo Russell, who they just drafted, another Julius Randle, who they drafted last year. So I think a lot of guys who are close to their primes and are ready to compete right now are going to be hesitant to some extent to jump to the Lakers unless they really think they can be the ones to turn this thing around.
The the money that's coming in next year with the TV rights and everything else, and the salary caps are going to jump. We don't know how high, but they're going to jump pretty high. The New Orleans Pelicans and Anthony Davis come to this 5-year, $145 million extension that doesn't kick in until next year. So kind of our first sign of this new money coming around. What does this type of deal, Anthony Davis is an incredible basketball player, but what does this kind of money, what's that say for the money that the LeBron Jameses and the Kevin Durants and guys like that are going to look for come next year?
So they're going to be looking for some big paydays. And, frankly, that's a great deal for a guy like Anthony Davis. A 5-year, $145 million deal. He's going to be making close to $30 million per year. And if you think about what he brings to the table, the impact that he has on the game, they're really getting him at a bargain price. And I think the same could be said of LeBron and what he's made in recent years. You could say the same for Durant. You could say the same for Kobe back in the day, or Michael Jordan in his day. I think that's going to lead to an interesting discussion coming up in 2017 when you figure that the players and the owners are going to get back to the negotiating table talking about how do they want the business of basketball to look going forward. It's been sort of a sticking point over the last little while now, ever since Michelle Roberts took over as head of the Players Association, that she said that max salaries for players are ludicrous, that it's anti-American, that there should be no cap on what these guys can make. And I think certainly LeBron and Kevin Durant and guys in that category are hearing that and licking their chops and thinking, yeah, we agree, we should be making $40, $50, $60 million a year, given the value that they bring to the table, both on and off the court. I think it's hard to argue with that point.
Do you think we'll ever see a $200 million contract in the NBA?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know if it's going to be next summer. It could come the summer after that in 2017 when the cap is expected to be about $108 million. Because if you have a guy like LeBron who can sign a max contract that's worth about 35% of the cap, that would bring it close to $40 million a year, 35-40 million in that range. Multiply that over 5 years, you're getting pretty close to $200 million. So we're starting to get into baseball money territory with a lot of these guys, which has to have the owners thinking, well, we need to rethink how we're doing business here.
Josh Martin from Bleacher Report joining us. Ford and O'Brien, ESPN Evansville 105.3 and online, ESPNEvansville.com. Speaking of salary cap, not so much next year, but earlier today, Ken Berger of CBS Sports had a report that this year's cap could be up to $2 million higher than expected because of the revenue the NBA was able to generate this season. Does that change things for some of the more cash-strapped teams looking to sign some free agents this year?
I think to some extent it could, depending on what these different teams are trying to bring to the table. The interesting wrinkle with that is that if you're a team that is maybe slightly over the cap or is right around that range, with the cap being a little bit higher, it might take you out of the running to use something like the mid-level exception, which has been a pretty crucial tool for building teams for a long time now. That's, $5.5 million or so you can offer per year over the course of a 4-year deal. So I think it's going to give teams that extra bit of work they need to do to maybe get over the cap so that they can have that extra tool at their disposal.
Let's get back into a couple, just a free agent name I didn't get a chance to mention earlier. The reports are that Draymond Green broke off talks with the Warriors today as he pursues other options. Does this shut the door on the Warriors, or where does that leave Draymond Green and a possible return to that team?
It leaves them in the same spot as before. It just means that now Draymond is probably going to go out, field offer sheets from other teams, and the Warriors still have the right of first refusal because Draymond Green is a restricted free agent. So whatever deal comes his way, the Warriors can just match it and re-sign him if they so choose, and I'm sure that they will, given the role that he's carved out for himself on their team. I think it's just a matter of maybe Draymond needed to go out and figure out what his market is before the Warriors were willing to actually give him as much money as he wanted.
One more for you, Josh, and then we'll let you go, and we appreciate the time. The stories coming out of Sacramento have just been what a mess that place is. Is George Karl and DeMarcus Cousins on that team when the season begins?
I have no clue. Honestly, it's so crazy. I mean, I don't know who's going to be on that team or what's going to be going on. I can tell you this. if you throw Rajon Rondo into that mix, a guy who really prefers to play in the half court, it seems, on a team with George Karl and DeMarcus Cousins, it's like, who else are we going to bring to this mix? Monte Ellis, Josh Smith, those guys are free agents too, and they've had their issues in the past. So it's just the same old quagmire in Sacramento, and I guess I don't really see that changing until something really changes from ownership, where Vivek Ranadive decides that that he's going to back someone who's going to hire a coach and then who really believes in the roster, or is going to have the power to make the changes that they feel are necessary.
Josh Martin, NBA lead writer for Bleacher Report, joining us on the Menard Studio Hotline. Great stuff as always, Josh. I know there's a lot more to get to as this free agency period is officially underway in the NBA, and we'll keep an eye on your post there at Bleacher Report. You can follow Josh on Twitter as well, at Josh Martin NBA. Appreciate the time, Josh. Thanks a lot.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.